Hi, this is Mrs. Cox at Glen Elementary. I teach 4th grade, and we are learning about organisms and the environment with Mr. Crosslin.
Hey, thanks for that great introduction. I'm here with some excited 4th grade scientists, and we are studying something that at first may seem kind of hard to understand, but I think after we get started, you're going to understand that it's really all around us and quite easy. You see, we're talking about organisms and the environment and how they get their basic needs. Now, their basic needs for any plant or animal can be boiled down to just a few things. Everybody and everything needs a place. Everything basically needs water. Everything needs food. And everything needs other of its same type so it can reproduce. So we're going to talk about some organisms and how they meet their basic needs. You know, when I'm hungry, when you're hungry, what do? You eat. When you're tired, what do?
You go to bed.
You go to bed. When it's cold outside, what do? Wear a coat. So you do respond to your basic needs and to your environment. So here's the thing. The environment changes. Some changes are like day and night. What's another change that in the big environment outside of our school happens? Yes.
Sometimes it can be cold in winter.
In cold in winter, hot in summer, windy and rainy in the spring, and kind of blustery in the fall. So the environment changes. As the earth revolves around the sun and is tilted, we have seasons. And as the earth rotates, we have day and night. And as you travel north, it's usually colder. If the equator is hot, you travel to the south. So luckily for us, we live in a changing environment. But how do animals meet their needs in the change? Well, another word for change is stimulus. Stimulus means something happens and causes a change. And let's take a closer look at that. Go ahead and draw this chart on your paper. So draw straight across, and we're going to have 4 big sections. So here's, and use the whole part of your paper, because we're going to look for examples of how organisms change when a stimulus comes, okay? So in this first box, we're going to call that the organism. Here's going to be the stimulus, what causes it, which is a change, right? And here is before the stimulus, what's going on, and this is after the stimulus. Okay? Go ahead and make your paper set up like that. Let's start kind of simple. Here's one right here. Here's the organism we're going to talk about first is an owl. Everybody write an owl? When do owls usually, what do they do during the day? Sleep. So they usually sleep in the day and rest. What do they do at night? What do they do at night? Hunt. And they hunt their territory, they hunt for voles, they patrol, they make sure no one else is coming in their area. What is the stimulus? What causes an owl that is asleep resting to wake up and start to hunt? What is the stimulus? Anybody? What happens? What happens? Yes. It gets dark. It gets dark and it's nighttime. So the owl knows that when it's dark, it's time to wake up. So here's an owl. He's asleep, he's at rest. It gets dark, he wakes up. You understand where we're going with this stimulus? What about anybody have a cat at home? A cat. All right. At my house, during the day, the cat takes naps, it sleeps, it rests. But what does it do at night? What do cats do at night? Not only house cats, they're awake. And bobcats and tigers and lions and pumas, and they all hunt at night. Cats hunt at night. So nighttime, They hunt and they patrol. Nighttime is a stimulus, so when it's dark, and guess what? They have adaptations. They can see really good at night. They have padded feet that's quiet for walking at night. Huh. Well, what about I have a dog. What about my dog? What do you think my dog does during the day?
Probably play.
He plays, he eats. What does he do at night? What's his thing? He sleeps. And so when it becomes dark at night, he's asleep. All right? I'm going to show you one more. Okay, check this out. This stimulus is going to be winter. Okay? So, and the organism is not going to be an animal. Let's do a tree, all right? Let's try a tree. A tree. Before winter comes, what does a tree have and look like? Anybody? It grows, it has leaves, right? It's green, right? It grows, maybe fruit, flowers. And then what happens when winter comes? The whole tree dies?
Well, usually that's in fall.
The leaves, okay, so when winter comes, the leaves drop, right? The leaves drop and the tree stops growing. Well, it slows down. Let's take a close look at that, all right? Tree, winter. It was green, the leaves fall, and it slows down. Okay, for example, we have something like this. We're going to make, right? On this side of my plate, I'm going to call this my stimulus wheel. On this side of the plate is a tree in summertime. Let's add a stimulus of winter. When I flip it around, guess what it's going to look like?
It's going to have no leaves.
No leaves. Okay, so here we have summer, stimulus comes, winter. Springtime comes, it's wet, it's warm, the leaves come back. So this is a double stimulus. Winter it loses, spring it comes back. And so
fall.
It is fall. So this is how an organism meets its need. Let's take a look at our science book and learn about some other organisms that start one way and make their life and basic needs when the environment changes. Okay, so in your book, there's a lot of different examples of this. And as you read and study that, you're going to find out that there's a lot of organisms that respond to a stimulus to meet their needs. There's one at the bottom of the page. It's a strange bird. It's not strange to the bird, but to us, I like the name. It's called a cedar, which is a type of tree, really, waxwing. A cedar waxwing is a bird. Now, in winter, it does something. See, it lives up in Canada during the summer, but in the wintertime, guess what it does? It flies south. Why would it fly south? So in the winter, it lives and it eats, it actually lives in Canada.
It's warm.
When it gets cold in the winter, what does it do? I heard you say it. It does what?
It migrates.
It flies south for the winter, and where it's warm and there's food. What do we call that? I heard you say it migrates. So it migrates, which means goes south for the winter. What does it do in the summertime, do you think?
It just comes back.
It comes back. So if you look in there, there's a picture of that cedar waxwing you can read about, and it actually will change. Now we have, I'll tell you here at Chapel, let me tell you a quick story. About 20 years ago, I remember when the very first Canadian geese landed across the street by the pond, and everybody was going, wow, look, a Canadian goose. Oh, there's another one. Canadian geese are here. And I took my class out, we looked at them, we drew pictures, we studied them, and it was so cool. The next year, they were still here. The next year, more were here. Last night, I went out there and I saw about 60 or 70 of them.
Dang.
And all over the ground, there was some droppings from them. It was kind of a nuisance. And I got to thinking, wait a minute, this is wintertime. They're not supposed to be here. They're supposed to be down in Alabama. They're supposed to be down south. They're supposed to migrate. And then I remembered, you see, about 20 years ago, we didn't have a lot of birds here because people, farmers, scientists were using a special chemical to kill weeds. Now you might think that's a good thing. But the trouble was, a lot of the bugs, before they died, were eating those weeds, and the chemicals got in the bugs. And who eats bugs?
The birds.
The birds. And who eats some of the plants? The geese. And so what happened was, when these birds started laying their eggs, that chemical caused their eggshells to crush. And so we were losing lots and lots of birds. There was a scientist, you can look her up and read more about her. Her name was Rachel Carson. She wrote a book called Silent Spring. If we're not careful, in the springtime, there won't be any songbirds. It'll be quiet. Because in the springtime, you hear birds chirping and having life. So we changed it. We stopped some of those chemicals. And people thought, you know what? Let's bring back some Canadian geese. So they brought geese and they started growing them, hatching them out, and letting them go. But these geese were different than the wild geese. The wild geese had been taught by their mother and father in the wintertime to migrate south. They were taught to fly south. The geese you have around our school right now, they've never been taught to migrate. So what do?
They just stay.
They stay here. They eat corn from our fields. They find a warm place to live. They find water around all of our housing and subdivisions and buildings and schools. They lay their eggs. Their babies live in the ponds. They eat. There are no predators. When they go to Canada, there were foxes and coyotes and different things that would get them. Weasels. When they went down to Alabama and Georgia, there were wild things, predator and prey, and things were balanced. So now, because we tried to help them, they're here. And they won't migrate. They just keep growing and growing and growing. The animal population is getting bigger and bigger. I will tell you, some scientists, maybe you heard about this guy and his daughter, they thought maybe we could teach geese to migrate. And so when they hatched them out, they were real careful that they kept them like as wild geese. They didn't make them pets. And the dad had a hang glider that he could fly. And when the birds learned to fly, he would fly up around their farm and the geese would follow him and land. He would take off again, and he did this for about a couple weeks. And then it was time. Winter was coming. He took off. They flew with him. He flew south and landed. They landed. He flew farther south and they landed. Finally, he flew to where wild geese go, left them, drove home, and the geese stayed. He taught those geese to migrate, to respond to winter. The trouble is, that was one man, his daughter, and maybe 10 geese. And there are thousands and thousands of geese. So what should we do?
Do it.
I don't know. That's a good question for you. Let's look at another animal. Go ahead and turn your page. And you see here, this is one of my favorite. Here's a bird. This bird is a flamingo. You heard the word flamingo? What's the word? It has the word flame in it. What color is flame?
Orange.
Flamingo. It could be orange or red. A flamingo is a bird. And what is a flamingo? What does it turn into?
Pink.
Pink. It turns into a pink color. Where does it get its color? Anybody? Before, when they're born, they're white. They're white. What do? You can read in your book. What do to turn pink?
Yeah.
What do they eat? I'm sorry. They eat what?
Shrimp.
They eat what's called brine shrimp. Brine shrimp. And guess what color brine shrimp are?
Orange. Pink.
They're red.
Oh.
So a white flamingo eats red brine shrimp, and the chemicals, the keratin and the colors in the shell of the brine shrimp turn it pink. That's pretty cool. So there's lots and lots of, one last one. Check this out. One of my favorite plants is a small thing called a bonsai tree or a bonsai tree. You ever heard of a bonsai tree?
Yeah.
They're real little trees, little trees. They're hard to grow. Do you know, here's the thing. A normal tree is large, right?
Yeah.
Like a red maple is 30 feet tall. But a bonsai tree is only 30 inches tall. It's small. They are cute. I like them. What did they do? What's the stimulus? What did they do to keep that tree small? More or less fertilizer?
Water?
More or less water? So, yeah, they put it in a small container, a small pot, and they would cut it and trim it and keep it small. There's a picture in your book of it on the right side there, down at the bottom. So here's a picture of a small bonsai tree, a Japanese red maple one, and there's a picture of what they usually get. A Japanese red maple usually gets really tall. So you can see the difference between the stimulus. Pretty cool. Okay, so as you finish reading the section, you're going to learn about other animals, other plants. In fact, there's a starfish that needs to stay cool, and when it's stuck in the tidal pools, they get really hot water, so it sucks in cold water. It like brings its own ice bag. I guess the most interesting one for me is that plants, like your plants, they respond to light. So they grow towards light. That's another stimulus. And finally, who knew, have you ever been to like a shopping center, a big store, and there's a bird flying inside of it? Yeah. You ever seen a bird flying inside of it? Yeah. And I always wonder, how do those birds get out or get in? Some scientists have noticed that birds will fly in front of the automatic door opener. You know, when you walk into a store, there's a little thing at the top of the door that sends down an infrared beam. It's like your TV remote, and it bounces off you and says, oh, there's a person here, and the door opens. You don't even have to open the door. You ever seen an automatic door opener?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's the weird thing. Birds have learned to do this, to fly down and fly in front of it. It opens and they fly in. And then when they're inside, they come to the other side, they fly in front of it, it opens, and they fly out. They've learned that the house sparrow, an English house sparrow, has learned that, hey, why live outside when it's cold when I can go inside a big store and live there? And I guess if I get hungry, go over to the birdseed department. And they actually do that. So there's a lot of animals that have learned to live with us and live with people.
Well, that's a smart animal.
And that could be good or bad or a smart animal. So there's things like bears. Here's like, what does a bear do? And what's the stimulus? What's the stimulus?
It hibernates.
Oh, it hibernates. Okay, so we'll do one last one. A bear in the winter time. That's the stimulus, right? Yeah. And then we're gonna do a craft here. And then before, the bear in the springtime eats, and guess what he does?
Hibernate.
Eats.
Oh yeah, because he's trying to get ready for the winter.
He's trying to get ready. And then after winter comes, what does he do? Hibernate. And maybe that's what I need to do, hibernate in the winter.
Yeah. Hey, that might be a good one. I
don't know. You'd be awful grumpy. All right, let's look at our next activity. Okay, here's two students that have already finished this project. So you have a tree, and what is this showing? What time is that year is that?
The summer.
The summer. And what's the stimulus? What happens to the tree?
It grows leaves.
It grows leaves. And then winter comes, and what happens?
The leaves fall off.
The leaves fall off. So you have a stimulus, and it changes. Now this is strange. Is that a shooting star? What is that?
It's a starfish.
Oh, a starfish. And it likes cool water, right?
Yes.
So it's cool water, but when it gets...
In the winter time, it becomes a low tide.
Yeah, well, not in the winter time. It's sometimes the day the low tide comes. And what happens to the water in the tide pool?
It heats up.
It heats up, and that starfish would die. But what does it do?
It sucks up water from the... He sucks up the cold water, and when the sun dries up all the cold water, the starfish releases the cold water out into the little tide pool.
So it has its own. It brings its own ice bag with it. So let's see. Everybody put summertime and hot or cold, and let's turn them around and turn them around and turn them around. Hey, would you guys like to make one of these stimulus wheels?
Yeah.
All right. Sure. Let's get started. Okay, this is pretty simple to make a stimulus wheel. You're going to get 2 paper plates, right? There's 2 paper plates, and I brought, instead of a pencil, I got some chopsticks and some tape. And so on one of these, you're going to draw an organism, and you're going to draw the same organism on the second one, but the second one is after the stimulus. So if you draw a bear eating, then you write winter and you show a bear hibernating. Are you guys ready to get started?
Yeah.
So let's go then.
Got it, snap.
Okay, we also need our tape. One person come and get tape. Pass the tape out to everybody.
Here. I got tape.
Pass it out.
No, we can't get
We have plenty.
Fill it extra.
Thank you.
This is an owl. This is in the dark time, but just didn't finish it.
You forgot me.
Uh,
I'm trying to make a tiger ear.
Tiger, what's your stimulus going to be?
day and night,
Day and night. Oh, yeah, great.
like the winter or something.
No, day and night. Anybody else?
Nope.
I'm making a doggy.
Making a doggy, okay.
This one will be a house.
A dog in a house and out of house. Stimulus might be it's cold.
Okay, we can learn a lot more about this on Maion. We can read about hibernation on Maion also. So maybe we will do that a little later this morning. So today my class learned a lot about how organisms respond to their environment, which is called a stimulus. My class, they have some really, really great examples. Show everyone the befores.
Before.
After. Before. After. Before. After.
Yay!